Thank you all so much for coming out to our talk. We love controversy and when people disagree with us, so please do a lot of that. Cyber employees, there's a shortage, right? Everyone talks about it. We've been talking about it for a decade. There's way too many cybersecurity way too many cybersecurity openings, right? We're drowning in them. There aren't good enough people, right? NIST is talking about it. Dark reading. I found one from Forbes. This is all articles from the last couple of months, right? The news is talking about it. You hear that you go to the right news stories, you go to the right blogs, depending on who you're reading. Hey, there's not enough cybersecurity employees. Vendors, they're going to solve all of our problems, and one of them is, hey, you don't have enough employees, right? Gartner, Forrester. Interestingly, Gartner has backed off from this in the last 3 years. They used to be all about it, and now they don't talk about it as much. But it's still in their literature, and they still reference it when they write new articles. And the truth of the matter is we feel it. We feel it in our bones, right? You feel the pain and weight of, yeah, I don't have enough people, Alex, you idiot. There's not nearly enough, and it's really hard to find and hire and retain good people who can solve my problems. Well, I'm going to argue, and Jake and I are going to argue today, is there really a shortage of good cybersecurity employees? Or isn't there? Who are we to talk about this, to tell you any of this and to say any of this? My name's Alex Humphrey. I am a director of security at Solutions 2. My background, I started way back in the day, literally racking and stacking servers because I needed money. The two things I didn't want to do when I graduated college was I didn't want to do IT and I didn't want to do sales, and now I'm a cybersecurity consultant. But I spent working on 20 years in cybersecurity and IT. First half or so of that has been as a practitioner, working at multinational organizations, building cybersecurity teams, and doing a lot of the things we talk about. The second half of which has been on the consulting side and working with organizations globally on a lot of these things that we're going to talk about today. And with me is...
Hey there, my name is Jacob Haynes. I'm a security architect with Solutions 2 based out of the Denver, Colorado area. And I spent the first 10 years of my career in IT, grew up on the help desk, got into IT management, transitioned into cybersecurity in 2018. And for the last 4 years, I've been in a consultative role where I work with our clients to help them build strong cybersecurity foundations for their organization. So enough about us. Let's jump into this.
Can you hear him okay? Do you need to use the mic closer?
Yeah, is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Let me pull this up a little bit. There we go. How about that? All right. So, why do we feel like there's a cybersecurity shortage? Sorry, let me go back here real quick. So, why do we feel like there's not enough talent out there to fill all of these cybersecurity roles? Well, I think one thing we need to do first is let's start with this simple but critical question: why does your organization exist? Right? What's its mission? What's its purpose? What problem is it trying to solve in the world? And I can guarantee you one thing: unless your organization is a cybersecurity company, I can guarantee you that your organization doesn't exist to respond to phishing emails or to investigate security endpoint alerts. And I can also guarantee you that your organization doesn't exist to maintain a SIM or identify vulnerabilities in your information systems. It just doesn't. Your organization exists to deliver healthcare to its patients, or to manufacture frozen burritos, or deliver a service, or build widgets, or whatever it is that your organization does. Your organization exists to deliver value, and our role in security is to help it do just that, safely, securely, and without interruption. And in our opinion, there really isn't, the real gap isn't a talent shortage, right? It's an organizational prioritization problem. We aren't aligning security efforts to what actually matters to the business, right? And to its mission, and to its goals, and ultimately to its bottom line. I see it every day with most organizations that we work with. They don't run their security programs in a way that actually supports the business outcomes. And companies typically try to hire security professionals. Sorry, I wasn't clicking through this. Companies don't typically hire security Companies are typically trying to hire security professionals who can do all of the things, right? We've all seen those job descriptions. You have to be able to implement identity and access management tools. You have to be able to stand up and manage SIEMs, build vulnerability management programs, respond to phishing emails, securing the cloud, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And that's all important stuff, but those are tactical tasks and not necessarily tied to strategic outcomes. And we wonder why there are very few entry-level cybersecurity jobs out there. And the truth is, most organizations don't have the budget to hire and develop the deep expertise that's needed to manage all of these tools and processes. But there's some good news here, and the silver lining is that these gaps are solvable. And with the right approach, we don't have to do all of the things. We can do the right things that matter the most to the business.
Absolutely. So what does this look like? What are some things we're going to be talking about? So how do we close this gap in hiring? 3 things, because it's always 3. You learned that in Presenting 101. Build a team that understands your business. 2, train and develop internal experts. And then 3, partner to cover the basics. So let's dive into what each of these mean and how to actually do this in real life. The first thing you want to do is you want to build and create a team that actually understands your business and your organization and is working alongside it. Assemble, right? Pull the team together, bring in the right folks. Marketing was shocked that we started putting memes in this, but we were like, hey, it's B-sides, let's have fun. Every cybersecurity team is understaffed because we're trying to hire people who do everything. So we need to hire experts who have 20 years of experience across 400 different security tools and can do it effectively. That's never, ever going to work. So we want to start, when we're thinking about our cybersecurity program or individual careers as cybersecurity practitioners, to refocus on the things that only an internal team can do. What is that unique thing that you as a cybersecurity employee at this organization can do better than anyone else in the world because you know the people, you know the processes, you're there on the ground when things are happening. You start to figure this out by asking, what is the purpose of my business? One of my first real cybersecurity jobs was at Mary Kay. So if you've ever seen Little Pink Cadillac ladies, I'm the reason why they didn't get hacked for several years there. The purpose of that business is 2 things. 1, they manufacture makeup. There's a manufacturing facility in Dallas and another one in China. The second thing they do is they have a website, an e-business, that processes billions of dollars of transactions every year. We had a cybersecurity team of about 30 people around the time I left. How many people on that team do you believe were associated with protecting and securing the manufacturing environment? One too many. 0. No one in the entire security team had any priority or focus around the manufacturing environment. What about the e-business? Literally all our money is made doing this. How many people do you think we had? People are getting some more goose eggs, some 4. That's a good guess. 2. Awesome. 1, and he started about halfway through my tenure on the security team, which was several years in. And he was just a guy we sniped from the developers, right? So most organizations I talk to have this problem. The things that are most important to their organization are not the things that they're hiring and building security teams around. And so the first question to answer is, what is the purpose of my business? Why does this organization exist? Unless I'm, Microsoft, it's not email security. Unless I'm CrowdStrike, it's not endpoint security, right? So why does your organization exist? And then, what are we trying to do over the next year and a half, right, as an organization? Are we trying to build another manufacturing facility? Are we developing apps? Are we expanding our services? Are we acquiring a company and changing our entire model? Like, what are the things the organization is talking about? Not just security, not just IT, but organization-wide. What are the 2 or 3 things that the executive team and the board are talking about the most? And then, now that you have this idea of kind of what we do and what our major priorities are as an organization, what do you need to do for an expertise? What needs to be in place from a security perspective to help solve those problems that are going to be created from that? once you have that in place and you have a firm idea of what you need, now you need the people who can help you, right? Employee training. There's a concept I haven't heard in quite a long time. We didn't really know how the stage was going to be set up, so I apologize that most of my pictures are going to be hidden. I'm not that clever anyway, so you're not missing too much. But training and development then is the next step. Okay, now I know what I need. Now I need people who can help me achieve those goals, help me enable the business to achieve its goals securely. And I start by hiring and training people who want to be experts in this niche. A couple years ago, I was interviewing just a brilliant woman who had been doing OT security. And I was looking to bring her in as sort of a consultant to support me and my team. Absolutely brilliant, one of the most brilliant cybersecurity minds in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm talking to her, and she's walking me through, like, well, I've been doing all this OT stuff the last 6 months, and I'm really liking it. And this other company is making me this offer to basically do OT security full time. And I'm going to start going to OT conferences and giving talks and starting to introduce security concepts to that world. And it was amazing because she really was starting to understand the nuances, as someone who came from a manufacturing background, the nuances of securing that environment and the pain points there, et cetera. So I told her, I was like, hey, like, if you want to be a consultant, come work for me. You'd be awesome. If you want to be like the best person in OT security, you should take that job. She never worked for me, and she's phenomenal at OT security. But when you think about expertise, right, you think like, God, I need someone who has 20 years of experience in manufacturing to be beneficial. No, you don't. You need someone who can focus on a specific thing consistently for a relatively short amount of time. You can develop an expert in almost anything in 6 months. Now, no, you can't be a doctor in 6 months or whatever, but OT security, you can be an expert in OT security in like 2 weeks. There's not that much written on it. Development security, right? Again, another thing, like if you have any kind of development background at all, comp sci degree, whatever, you understand the basic concepts, you can pretty quickly use that understanding of that world, and 6 months of targeted experience, heck, do a boot camp in 6 months. You can be an expert in software security, software development lifecycle, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes pretty easy to train people to be in your niche, and so you want to find people who want to do that kind of work. And the interesting thing about this is, since this is more associated with the actual purpose of your business, what I found in doing this myself and working with other companies to do this is getting budget is a lot easier. When I'm walking in and I'm saying, look, I need you to spend another $1 million next year on this new email thing, because if we get phished, you've read about it in the news, CEO, CFO, it's gonna be terrible. And they go, okay, maybe. On the other hand, you go, hey, our entire business is manufacturing. If we get attacked from a manufacturing perspective, we're done. I want $30,000 to train person X in manufacturing cybersecurity over the next 2 months, and then an additional budget to start building projects to make us absolutely secure as we're doing this without impacting the manufacturing plants at all. They're gonna be like, yeah, here's the money. Here's 30,000, here's $500,000, here's whatever. So get training in the budget, fight to keep it there every single year. And then, if you're a leader especially, but even as an individual contributor, communicate the importance of this to the team, right? The importance of training, the importance of focus, the importance of all the work we're doing aligning very neatly to the purpose of the business. What does this lead to, in my experience? Higher team retention. People who are doing work that matters, that supports the business as a whole, like, they're happy. People responding to phishing emails all day at a makeup company are not happy. Been there, right? But when I was given opportunities to support transition into AWS as we were moving our entire infrastructure to the cloud, or as I was given opportunities to support a developer and building a CI/CD pipeline that really takes security into account, that stuff like lit me on fire. I was so excited. I was ready to jump all in. People are happier, making less money even, if they're doing work that they feel like matters and is exciting and they're influential in what's happening. It also builds cross-organization collaboration. The worst thing in cybersecurity is everyone hates us, right? Like, you ever go to a sysadmin and say, hey, we need to do a patch, right? And they're gonna be like, yeah, you're gonna take down my entire system with your patch. No. Or, again, manufacturing background, when we patched if we were going to patch certain systems in a manufacturing environment, we would have to shut down the entire line for a day. to do a patch that would take less than a minute to install, just because of the nature of the machines that they were associated with and how it worked. That was losing literally millions and millions of dollars for the time that that's not producing makeup. And so it becomes very, very difficult for me to come to someone and go, hey, I need to patch this system, and they go, why? Well, because it's a 10 on the CVE score. Like it's got a 10. It's critical. It's important. They go, well, why is it critical? Is it critical to us? Does it really matter? I didn't have answers to those questions because I didn't understand the manufacturing environment well. I didn't even understand this problem very well. But as I started to learn and I started to work with them and I started to be more focused on these things, I discovered, like another thing I found walking the floor of the manufacturing environment was, this is my favorite. I walked in on a Windows XP machine that was running a machine that was internet connected. And it had no antivirus on it, and it hadn't been patched in like a decade. And I was like, we're getting rid of that immediately. So I start raising the red flag and burning it, trying to burn all my bridges to get this thing gotten rid of. And finally, someone very high up sits me down and goes, I want to explain to you what happens if we do this. First of all, we bought that application that's running that machine with an intended 30-year ROI, and we're on year 17. So if you cut out 12 years of ROI off of that application, 13 years? I guess I can't do math. That's all that money is lost money to the business, the way we're calculating it. On top of that, in order to change that system, you're gonna have to shut down that machine, it was literally producing the equivalent of $1 million an hour in revenue in stuff. So the way they'd have to do is they have to shut down that machine, they have to remove all the product that's in it, which destroys that product, by the way, more losses. You have to send all the hourly people home. Now, they don't get paid for however long they're there, or they're gone for. Then you do the change, you switch it out, you bring it back up, call those people back. It's 7, 8, 10 hours later before you're back up and running. And then, even better, no one could tell me what happened to the guy who they bought it from. He either died or retired or both, I don't really know. But they were like, we don't even know that we could get another application that could do this. And if we could, it's gonna be ungodly expensive. So what did I do? I created a way to siphon that off from the internet, protect it, allow it to stay there, and I was like, good, we're just not gonna touch this for another 13 years. And when that ROI is done, we're gonna talk again. But what I was able to do is start to build those relationships and grow them over time. And as I started to implement this idea more and more, not just for manufacturing, but working with the IT teams, working with the software teams, et cetera, what I started finding is instead of me walking into the room and them going, I hate you, why are we meeting? Stop ruining my life. I'd walk in and they'd be like, oh, here's someone who's going to help me. Yes, I might have to change some things that I'm doing, but they knew that I'm there to help them achieve their goals. I just want to make sure they can do it securely and safely. And everybody ultimately wants that and is willing to work with you. So this enables much better cross-organization collaboration because you can talk to them more effectively, you communicate with them, and you're all on the same page. So let's say you do all this, right? You figure out your purpose, you reorient your entire security team around it. As an individual contributor, you start working on things that matter to the business, working better across teams. What about everything else? You still got to secure email. You still got to monitor alerts, right? You still got to do an insane amount of stuff, right? What do you do with all that stuff?
So depending on where you're at in your security journey, you probably have tools in place that haven't been fully operationalized, right? You're not getting the full value out of that tool. Or you have projects in place that are taking too long to get completed or that they're stuck in limbo. And why is that? Well, in my experience, the majority of that reason is because you're stuck in firefighting mode, and the day-to-day tasks that you're trying to do are keeping you from doing more important work. And partnering to cover the basics is a very effective way to accelerate the maturity of your security program so that it can be better positioned to align with the business. So let's take a brief moment real quick to differentiate between these one-time projects and these ongoing operational services. And I know this probably seems very obvious here, but when you're working with a partner or multiple partners, it's really important to differentiate between these types of work. So from a one-time project standpoint, you got like things like identity and access management, MFA, implementing MFA, conditional access policies, automating the onboarding and offboarding processes. PAM falls under that category. You have email migrations, Things like deploying endpoint security tools and hardening, tuning those alerts. Data security can be an extremely complex project depending on the organization. Putting tools in place to discover where the data is, who has access to it, being able to classify that data based on its sensitivity levels, and then putting in those guardrails so that users are only doing what they should be doing with that data. And then you have things like SIM implementations and connecting the log sources and tuning IOCs and threat intelligence, and of course penetration testing. These are things that you don't have to babysit on a daily basis. You do them once, and then you periodically revisit them. On the other side of this coin is the ongoing operational services. So you have things like detection and response and vulnerability and exposure management and security awareness training. These are things that need to be done on a continuous basis, and along the way, you're making iterative improvements in each and every one of those areas.
Awesome. And the beauty of all this is we have, like when you think about this, again, your people need to be the experts in securing your organization. You don't need to be the experts in SOC work or pen testing or email security, right? There are actually really good third-party organizations that can do that now, either as a one-time, hey, we set up your thing and it's humming perfectly, or it's down, or we're doing it forever, sorry. How many people have implemented a product, a security product, got into about 30% of where they intended, and then were immediately moved on to another task and never got to touch it again?
Everybody.
Yeah. If you work in cybersecurity, that is your story. This gets rid of that. This top part, right? Now we're saying, hey, I'm gonna deploy this thing, and it's actually gonna be perfect. Why? Because I'm paying someone else to do it for me who knows this stuff in and out. Or from an ongoing commoditized day-to-day task, right? Most organizations really can't build a 24/7, 365 SOC with multiple tiers of analysts doing those investigations and responding to those things, right? There are a million MDR companies out there, and there's at least a couple of them that are really good. So finding partners and using this, like this is how you solve those commoditized tasks. But it leads to questions, right? Partners everywhere. Now we're drowning in partners, and we have other problems that we need to deal with. What if my partner sucks, right? Well, you have to hire the right partners, right? Oh, I guess. We'll do that. I did my picture on the other side this time. And they're going to promise you the moon when they sell you, and they often won't deliver. So all partners are not created equal. There's a ton of organizations out there that are terrible, that suck, right? So you need to ask some questions when you're trying to find the right partner up front, right? Things like, do they adapt to me, or do they do a one-size-fits-all approach across all their clients? Now, neither of these are the right or wrong answer, but for the work you're having them do, you need to understand how they're gonna do this, and if it meets what you actually need. Will they answer questions and provide clear feedback to the team when they need it? It's crazy to me how many managed services especially are like, yeah, if you're having a P1 emergency, send us a ticket and we'll respond sometime in the next 5 hours. You're like, what? And then they respond and they're like, yeah, you're right, that's a problem. You're like, did you turn it off and turn it off? Like, it's terrible. They don't answer questions. You get someone who doesn't understand your environment, and it breaks. So make sure that they can answer questions, gonna provide clear feedback to the team when you need it, and that they're doing it in a way that you can verify and report on. Especially with managed services, if they're saying they're gonna run something for you forever, they better be able to prove that they can do that. Not just up front before you buy it, but every single day they're working for you. How are you gonna verify and report on what they're doing? And then thinking through what problems they're gonna solve, right? Are they actually solving your problem, or are they twisting your problem into their solution, right? When you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And there are a million partners that are more than happy to tell you, hey, what your problem is, we'll solve it. Most of them are lying, right? So do they actually solve your solution, or are they twisting your problem do they actually solve your problem, or are they twisting your problem into their solution? And how do they actually know they can help you? Have they done any due diligence into your problem? Have they done an assessment? Have they reviewed? Have they had meaningful conversations with users inside your environment who would be impacted by this, right? There are some tools that maybe this doesn't matter as much because you know going into it, but for services, overall majority of the time, they need to have some sort of understanding and evaluation of your environment to make sure that this is gonna work. And then, when they have solved your problem, supposedly, how do they prove it? So how do you actually vet partners, right? You're asking questions, what do you actually do to actually vet these people and understand like what they're doing is actually working, right? This isn't everything, but reputation absolutely matters, right? Gartner, love them or hate them, the upper right quadrant are usually pretty good tools in that category, right? Not always. There is an aspect of pay to play. I don't have time to talk about this, but I have done the Gartner thing, and you don't have to pay to play, but you don't have to pay to get points and to show up, but you certainly have to pay if you want to talk to them and have a seat at the table at all. So it's not everything, but it does matter. And that's not just reputation with like Gartner and Forrester and others. It's like there are other people in your industry. Talk to them about the tools they're using. Ask them some of these questions. How is this working out for you? What sort of information are they doing to prove it? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to with managed services that they go, I love my MDR. Oh, great. How do you know you're more secure than you were before you bought them? Well, they haven't escalated anything to me in 6 months. It's actually probably a bad sign, really. Like they're not even bothering you about false positives, right? So reputation matters, talk to people, but be smart about it. Then clearly define SLAs with the partner, especially in services capacity and ongoing capacity. Contracts are real, marketing collateral is not. I cannot tell you how many organizations have an SLA, and then you go and read it, and the SLA is, we guarantee we will do X, Y, and Z in 1 hour or less. And what happens if we don't do it? We'll feel so bad about it, guys. We'll say we're sorry, and then we'll keep doing it. We'll keep doing what we're doing. That is bleep, right? That is garbage, right? That is crap. That is terrible. SLAs are, hey, if you mess up, if you don't hit this thing, the vendor feels pain, not you. So make sure they have clearly defined SLAs and that the consequences of those SLAs are in the contract and you understand what they are. Meet the post-sales team is another really important thing for vetting a partner, a services partner. They're going to put the best people in the world in front of you, right? Those pre-sales engineers, those account managers, right? The executive team's going to walk in, and then you're going to buy the thing, and sometimes you're going to get a phenomenal team who's going to support you every single day. And sometimes you're going to get a kid who can't even spell the word computer and has no idea what this technology or service does, has no idea of what your organization does or how it works. So you need to make sure you meet and understand if the post-sales team can support you the way you're expecting them to. You need to understand reporting. How do you know that what they're doing is actually happening? You need to be able to define metrics that validate the success of the service. This is not a shade at CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is a phenomenal solution, and their MDR is great. But a lot of people I talk to about CrowdStrike, over and over and over again, I'll hear something like my CrowdStrike security service is phenomenal. Overwatch is phenomenal. Okay, great. How do you know that it's working and they're not missing things or that they're responding in the way you intend them to? Like, what are they showing you to that? And they're like, oh, nothing. We don't know. I just feel like it's working, right? Define metrics. And for the record, overall majority of the time it is working, right? CrowdStrike is phenomenal. But define metrics that validate success and then have a way to report on them. And then if you're doing managed services, have a one-year contract the first time. Always. Listen. Every single one of them is going to want a 3-year contract. Every single one of them is going to want a 3-year contract. Some of them are going to want a 5-year contract. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot POC a service. It is not possible, right? I can POC a car, right? Test drive it, honk the horn, hit the buttons. How do I POC a steak dinner? You can't. You eat, because POCing it is eating the steak, right? Same thing with services. So any sort of POC or prep that you do initially, testing, they're either giving you the service for free, which very few of them do anymore, or you're getting some kind of half version that's not very good, right? So your POC is that first year. So get a 1-year contract, stick to a 1-year contract. So a lot of this is very management focused, but what about individual contributors? What about individuals who want to do a lot of this work?
Yeah, so if you are an individual contributor, whether you're an analyst or an engineer, or whether you are in security or you're looking to get into security, if you're spending the majority of your time on these low impact, very repetitive tasks, then you are going to get burned out. Trust me, I've been there. Alex has been there. It sucks, right? And the worst part about that is you're not providing any real value to the business, and that means you're invisible to them. But if you can learn and understand all the ways that the business makes money, and you can tie those security initiatives to business outcomes, then all of a sudden, you're not just the security guy or gal anymore, right? You become a business leader with security expertise. And when you're able to translate the technical risks into business impact, and you can show how security supports the speed and innovation and resiliency, then you begin to shift the business's perception of you. And that's how you get buy-in, right? That's how you get promoted, or that's how you land that next opportunity. And if you want to do these types of things, these types of commoditized work, like red teaming or tier 1, tier 2 alert triage or managing vulnerabilities, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Find a vendor or an MSSP that you can work for, and you can do that work all day long. Sorry. And you can do that work all day long. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you work for a company whose business is not security, then offloading a lot of these tasks will give you the space and freedom to focus on what truly matters to the business.
Yeah, and I think pen testing is such a great example of this because very few organizations nowadays have an internal pen testing team. You get above a certain size or you're in a certain niche, you absolutely have a pen testing team. But that's rare. That's not common. That's not the focus of most organizations. And so when you start to extrapolate that, why do we do that? Well, it's because having the internal expertise for a pen testing team doesn't make sense for the organization, but it does make sense to pen test regularly, right? Then you start to you can build it out to these other things. And so if you want to do pen testing, if you want to hack things, go find a red team company and work for them. You're going to be a lot happier, be much more well-funded, and you're going to learn a lot more than if you do it internally in an organization. So some closing thoughts. Right now, the problem with cybersecurity, the reason why we think that there's a shortage is because we're trying to build cybersecurity teams that can do everything. And we're trying to hire teams that can be experts in 100 different technologies and services and ideas, and we have 2 people to do it. And it just will never work. It's too broad of a category, and it's setting us up for failure. This leads to burnout, right? People get burned out, they get frustrated, they leave for greener pastures. I mean, I can't tell you how many organizations, even in my own career, where I've done the thing where like you go work somewhere for a year or two, you can go make $20,000, $30,000 more down the street and be just as miserable there, but making more money, right? And you see these people on their LinkedIn's, they jump from job to job to job every year or two. Why? Because they're being offered more money because those people are feeling the same problems, but they're also miserable, and they run into the same issue at every single job they go to. So we need to solve these problems. Moving from a do-everything mindset to an enable the business to achieve its goals securely mindset helps solve this problem. I've done it myself. I've seen it in multiple organizations. Security is enabled to accomplish a lot more. You achieve so much more, and the business cheers you on for it instead of fights you every step of the way. Your people start to stick around because they're happy, they're doing interesting work, their careers are growing and developing. And they feel like they have more support, and as an individual contributor, your career will grow much faster if you're focusing on these things. It's one of my favorite things to see is when you find a niche and you find a focus that supports the business as an engineer or an architect or whatever, what happens very quickly, I have time for this story. I met a guy who he started, this is more on the sort of DevOps side, but he started as one of the lowest tier guys on like a database team. And then he just started like finding things other people didn't want to do in the organization. He's like, I'll do that. And they kept promoting him, not as a manager, but like, okay, you're a junior engineer on the database team. Now you're like a full engineer on this other team. Oh, now you're kind of an engineer that sits between these other 2 teams. Oh, now you're a senior engineer. Now you're an architect. By the time I left that organization, he was this was back before COVID, he was the only remote employee in the entire organization. Why? Because he decided he wanted to leave Texas and move to Colorado to be closer to his family. And because his father was sick and he wanted to take his kids there and be around his family for the last couple of years. And so he turned in his notice because he knew the company does not do remote work at the time. No, hard no always. He not only got remote work, he got like a significant raise for leaving. Not because he was moving to Denver, but because they're like, no, like, please stay. Here's some more money. We'll absolutely make remote work. And they did it. Careers develop faster, and you'll have more support the more you're able to focus and show the business that what you're doing matters and aligns to what they're doing. And then, for all the other stuff, partner, right? You have to. We can't do it all anymore internally. There's a million commoditized things that cybersecurity teams are wasting hours and hours and hours. I think a lot of cybersecurity engineers and analysts' time is absolutely wasted because they're doing things that don't move the business forward. They're doing things that just hold the line. And they're doing probably a third of what they could be doing because there's one of them doing it when there should be 10, right? And so we have to partner. We have to offload these commoditized tasks to organizations that's their entire job. That's all they do. MDR companies, all they do is SOC, right? Pen testing companies, that's all they do. It doesn't make sense for me to try to get my people to do those things because the business will never fully support it. This ultimately saves money and creates a more secure organization overall because now the commoditized tasks are being done better, more efficiently, faster than they ever have before. They're doing it for cheaper than you could ever do it in-house. You're usually paying for less than one person or maybe 1.5 people total to get these services, depending on organization size and complexity. They're getting further than they've ever done. And now all these things that you've always been worried about but kind of ignored that are important to the business are suddenly being solved by your people internally doing the work that they were never able to do before. Oh, and one more thing. It's actually 3 more things. This is a process and it takes time. It took me 4 years once I kind of had this revelation at my first organization to start to put these things into play. Now, some of that was I was not a leader or a manager. I was an individual contributor. So I had to use what I had influence over, sort of manage up to my leadership in order to have some of these conversations and make these changes. But I did it, and it was extremely, extremely valuable. But it does take time. Even if you're a CISO who has complete authority over everything in your organization, you can't go in tomorrow and say, hey, we're assigning these 5 partners and all 4 of you are doing different work now and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you got to figure these things out. It's a process. It takes time. There's transitions. Individuals can do this. If you're low man on the totem pole, you're an engineer, junior engineer, and you're like, well, this doesn't matter to me. It absolutely does. Because when you start having conversations in this way, couching things around what moves the business forward, asking for tasks that help solve some of these problems for the business, people will start saying yes to you, see what you're doing, and you will have more influence with your leadership to start to make some of these changes. And then some vendors just suck. Sometimes you're going to partner with someone, you're going to pay them a lot of money, and it's going to be absolutely garbage. You're going to hate every second of it. They're going to do none of the things they promised. The people are going to be awful, and you're going to regret it from the moment you sign the contract to the moment they're gone. That's why you sign a 1-year contract to start, because otherwise we're in trouble. So if you get a vendor that sucks, don't worry about it. I mean, do worry about it, it sucks. But understand that it will end soon, move on, fail fast, get out of it as quickly as you can, and then keep going. So that's it. So thank you all, and now we'll do some Q&A.
Any questions?
Or you can just challenge us and say we're wrong.
Questions, challenges, complaints, grievances, thoughts, opinions, or otherwise. Not that I've ever rehearsed that phrase. Oh, here we go.
Hey, great presentation. I understand most of what you've said. I'm in a principal engineer type role, and sometimes I feel like I'm just like a glorified implementer of technology, right? And I end up being a sysadmin on a lot of those things. Where does that type of work fall into the scale? Because it's not quite the commoditized stuff that you guys discussed, but for just straight tool implementations, is that something that you're recommending partners for, or does it depend?
Everything always depends always, unfortunately. But that being said, I think some of that work is absolutely partner work. It depends what it is, though, right? Conditional access policies and Entra ID is a phenomenal example of this, right? Microsoft is terrible to partners, but what it's great at is with service partners. And there's a million people, and Microsoft's a weird, crazy beast. They change their stuff every 30 seconds, right? But there are people out there who actually understand it. And so when you're setting up conditional access policy as an individual engineer, you have to become a Microsoft expert, an identity expert, a conditional access policy expert, on top of everything else that you're doing, right? Or you can spend 5-10 grand as a company and have someone come in and in a week your conditional access is better than it's ever been, and maybe you know enough about it, check on it periodically, maybe you have them come back once a year to validate if anything's changed, right? So there are things like that absolutely you need to hand off. That being said, there are other tools that maybe matter a lot to the business. Like if I'm a manufacturing company, firewalls and network security matters a lot to me, right? Because that is the security of my OT environment. I can't put endpoint agents on there. I can't monitor it like I would normally do a SOC, and all the stuff in there is unique to my organization and how it works, et cetera. No third party is ever going to be as effective at that. So if I'm implementing firewalls in general for a standard IT company or whatever, I probably don't want to waste my people's time managing and working and running those. If I'm doing it in an OT environment, I probably want my people on that managing it. So it does depend, and it goes back to that purpose question. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thanks for hanging out at the end of the day, y'all. It's warm in here too. Yeah, I'm ready to drink.
What, you've not started yet?
Man, they wouldn't let me before the talk. Sorry.
So that's interesting. I've heard something very similar, like in the software development field. Like years ago, I came up the software development track towards that, and they said was elevate your process to like think about wider, because what's going to happen is everybody's going to get outsourced overseas, and you're not going to have a job. And the best thing you do is understand the business and be able to talk to the people that are going to be actually building the things. So it's a similar context. How do you see like convincing the business that like, I'm not paying anybody to do this now, but I need a vendor to handle this thing that we're not doing?
Yeah, the easiest way I found is a lot of times you are paying someone to do it. You're paying the sysadmin, you're paying the security engineer, the CISO is doing it, right? And it's not going well, right? It's probably 20-30% of what it should be. And there's this black hole over here that no one is paying attention to. Now, what I've found is a lot of, especially security leaders, don't want to talk about the black hole because they don't know how to solve that problem either, right? But what's easy to solve is, I know endpoint security because there's a million webinars on it and tools. So if I hire people and focus on this, I can show how I'm effective over here. How do I secure this other thing over here that's the foundational of our business? That's scary because that's something I have to figure out and my team has to figure out. So what ends up happening is you go through this process and you start to, the beginning is rough because you're not getting support from the business. But as your language starts to change, other business units start to see you as an ally instead of an enemy, you actually start accomplishing things that move the business forward securely. Then you can start asking for things. You can go like, hey, we've achieved X, Y, and Z, we could achieve this much more if this person wasn't focused on this. We're paying this person way too much money to do this when they could be doing this. This other part of the business that brings in all of our revenue is suffering because my people aren't doing this. So why don't we budget a little bit of money to put a service here, solve this problem, and free up these resources? Now, for less than the cost of one person, I have a third party that I can hold accountable, that I can have SLAs against, et cetera, doing this work, and the people that we're paying are now doing work that's better to the business. Most organizational leaderships will at least listen to that conversation and be interested, and it becomes much, much easier to get budget for those kinds of things than for just saying, hey, we need an MDR because Gartner said so, right? So that's been my experience, and it doesn't work all the time, right? Some places don't care no matter what, and those are great places to leave because everyone says there's a cybersecurity shortage, and you can you can go work for another company and make more money.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. That was definitely a top right quadrant take. So
Thank you.